Welcome back. Today is the day we are going to be diving into Nemesis Retaliation. This is Should You Back, where we dive into campaigns and I give you my thoughts based on everything available to us to make the best decisions going forward of whether or not we should be considering this campaign or maybe some additional components and add-ons. So if you are looking back in this campaign, or maybe you have questions regarding this campaign or some of my thoughts regarding some of the decisions made for this game, this video is for you. Let's go. Okay, so here we are. We are on day 16 left of the campaign. They have reached $4.7 million. Those are huge numbers. Obviously, people are loving what they're seeing here with Retaliation. In fact, this was the highest followed campaign for GameFound. So those are some pretty good numbers shown here. Obviously, people are liking this game. People have loved it. I made a video about it, giving you guys my first impressions playthrough after several plays of this game. I played this with my player group. I've also played this with the Awaken Realms development team lead to give me a good understanding of how this game is meant to work and some of the understandings of what they're trying to accomplish. So I want to do my best to convey my thoughts about this campaign in terms of the whole scope of it, but I also want to talk about the things about all the other games, because there's a lot of questions about, do I need to get the entire trilogy? If I don't get the entire trilogy, is there anything that you would buy? So I plan on trying to go through all those things in this video. But first off, let's dive into Retaliation and talk about what Nemesis Retaliation is on its own, as it sets apart differently from Nemesis. So Nemesis Retaliation is the third game in the line of the Nemesis trilogy. You have Nemesis, Nemesis Lockdown, and now Retaliation. Retaliation is giving players the ability to come to the fight as a prepared Marine unit who is geared up, ready to take the fight to the aliens for the first time. In the series, up to this point, we have been haunted or chased throughout the corridors, but now we are going to be actually geared and ready to go. Through that, Nemesis Retaliation is going to be taking a very different approach while still keeping very similar to the core concepts what Nemesis is. It's going to be taking itself and making it more standout-ish versus, say, Lockdown was to the original Nemesis. I think that's a very, very good thing. So when we go to, let's do this, Nemesis Trilogy, and I take a look and show you all the stuff here. When you look at the campaigns as whole, Nemesis by itself was a very, very good game overall, divisive in some ways, and I even was shaky in my enjoyment of it. In Nemesis, players are put into a spaceship that is kind of adrift. You wake up and things have gone amiss. Obviously, there's something going wrong, which are aliens have infested your ship, and you must survive by making sure the ship is going to go to the right coordinates, making sure the engines that are on, and getting yourself back into the carbonation chamber without having the whole thing blow up on you in between, or dying to aliens. Lockdown tried to enhance this by adding a little bit more of a gimmicky feature with the lights on and off. But because they wanted to focus on bringing the Nemesis characters forward to make it cross-compatible, they weren't able to really express much creative design when it came to Lockdown. So a lot of people, and I've even heard reviewers and other content creators talk about, you never hear people say one is better than the other. It's always a mixture between which one you should get. And that's because they're very homogenous. They're very similar because they tried to bring things to be playable with each other and be that cross compatibility. When it came to Retaliation, I was one of those people who originally was like, I want to play with my other aliens and I want to play with all my characters. But the reality is after speaking to the lead dev and then playing the game myself, I actually see the vision of what they're trying to do here. They want Nemesis Retaliation to break away from the bonds that Nemesis has and some of the restrictions that game has to allow themselves to make enemies and aliens more unique, make this game stand on its own 2 feet a little better, and to give it some more creativity room with how they want to do some of the encounters or playthroughs. But because of that, it does restrict the ability to have that cross compatibility. So there's a con there. But I do think when we talk about Nemesis Retaliation as a whole, there's definitely a push here to really give themselves a little bit more breadth in terms of the creativity direction. So Retaliation as its own step here, in my opinion, is much more unique and playable and different than it came to, say, Lockdown to Nemesis. Now, they might have had my quote here, and I kind of want to talk about my quote on this. Let's see what they said here. What did I say? That's not me. This is me. Nemesis Retaliation takes all my favorite parts of Nemesis system and streamlines it into a quicker and more fun experience. I want to talk about that because I do think that is a very pointed point to what I'm saying here. When you look at Nemesis Retaliation and all of the systems that they've taken here, I truly felt like playing this game. They took Nemesis and took the things that worked well, the tension and the thematic buildup, and said, okay, how can we make this work in a sense that is easier to comprehend rules that don't take an hour to teach someone how to play, and make it so that the system is very basic. You play a card to move. You're always going to generate sound, so that's not a non-question. And if a corridor has a sound marker in it when you roll it, you spawn enemies, draw a token. What does it say? The bag development in the original Nemesis and especially Lockdown felt very brutal, very, very backbreaking. This one doesn't seem as bad. It seems, again, more streamlined, more easier to comprehend in terms of that. And then from there, you roll dice for damage. Is the enemy in the corridor? Is it on you? Okay, you pick the dice that matches, you roll it, you go from there. Very, very easy to understand rules. Now, I will say Awakened Realms has not placed the rule book here on the page here. And that's because the rule book that was given to us is basically just like a Word document that is a living document, so they're making edits to it constantly. So that's probably maybe the reason they didn't have a forward-facing. But I kind of wish they did, because it's probably the first rule book that I've read from Awakened Realms that I was like, this is pretty easy to understand. Yes, there was some clarity issues that I had with it. So they're still not clear, but it's a prototype rule book. They're still developing, and it's not really intended for outside eyes. But from a player standpoint, from my perspective, reading, I was like, this is actually a pretty good rule book, and it was easy for me to read to the players if we had any questions, reference it, and be like, yep, this is what it says. Let's keep going. So I'm very happy with that. So let's talk about what we're going to be getting. There's 2 different pledges here that we're looking at, which is also new. Let's go to the standard pledge. Nemesis Retaliation, the core pledge, $65. This is the first time that I really felt like Awakened Realms is standing up and saying, we want to give you our game at a price that is not prohibitive and a very good deal and still get you the exact same experience, just missing some minis. And this is the Retaliation standard pledge for $65. I want to stress it to people. You don't need minis. They are not something that's going to enhance your gameplay. Yes, they're great. I love minis too, but the cost difference is substantial, and you can get the exact same experience as someone who's spending $300 on their game for $65. So that's what this standard edition pledge is. So you're going to get all the same components, the dual layer player board, all the room tiles, character tiles. The only thing that we're going to be replacing here with this one are these minis that you would see here are going to be replaced by these standees. The benefit to that actually is that they're colored standees, so you don't have to worry about painting or having gray blobs moving around the board. Now, I still get it. I'm still one of those people that will probably still get the collector's edition because I like minis, and I also don't take my own stupid advice. But if I were to be serious with myself, this is a great pledge for someone who is looking to get themselves into Nemesis and to experience the story and all the things that this game has. I think this is the perfect pledge for that. But if you are someone who wants to get a little bit more from your game, they do have now the special edition pledge, which was originally the original standard pledge. This is what the normal price is. So $109 will get you the same game. And again, the only difference between this one and the other one is those miniatures are included in the special edition. Both games come with the stretch goal box, so you're going to get all the additional freebies, which is talking about like the new alien race and whatnot. We'll talk about that. So let's look at those stretch goals. Unfortunately, we don't have as many. When we do these videos early, there's a weird dichotomy when it comes to making these Should You Back videos. earlier you do in the campaign, the more views we get, the more people see my content and hear my advice. Later in the video, in the lifespan, less people watch, but we have a full breadth of the whole campaign, so we can give our true opinion on the whole idea. So it's kind of a weird take with that, and I wish people would watch the videos when I did them later in the campaign, but unfortunately they don't. So here we go. This is the stretch goals we already have unlocked. First thing is the new character, the Bioenhancement Expert. I love that we're seeing some additional characters. And one of the things I noticed is that the character cards did really feel a little bit more asymmetrical. Not much, but a little bit enough to give it so that the characters did have some uniqueness. So there was kind of a difference with playing this character with some of the cards they have advantage to. Now, they don't show examples here, and these cards are actually completely fake, so you can't even read them. But one of the things that is cool, and if we actually, maybe I can see if we go back to this pledge, the officer card was one of the characters that I played in the gameplay. And here they go. They had these command cards. You'll see it says command on the bottom. So these were some of the cards that gave some of that uniqueness to each of the individual characters. Every character will have a command card that they can play, and the higher ranking officers or the higher ranking characters will have cards that are going to influence or interact with other characters. So for example, this officer channel says play any other command card from your hand and use that card as if you were in any other room facility. So what that means is, let's say this is not a good example because this is another command card. So you can do this when all characters in your room, including you, burst into the corridor of your choice. So I could play Officer Channel to then play this Fire at Will, which is all characters in my room, including me, but I can make it so that people in another room, I could command them to do this command to burst so they can give them additional shooting actions. I like that aspect where you're able to come up with some unique options from these cards. And so every character has some of their own cards to give them that kind of unique feel, to make them feel a little bit better or more complete. So again, I haven't played with this Bioenhancement Expert, so I don't know necessarily what this character will do or what their uniquenesses are, but I'm always encouraging new characters. And I believe, reading the updates, they plan on having 2 characters. One will be Kickstarter exclusive, or GameFound exclusive rather, which is this one, and the other one will be available for additional purchases. And now we have also the Neo-Flesh Cult expansion. This will be included in the stretch goals. This is an additional race of aliens that we can face off against with their own mechanics, and these ones are going to be interacting with the board because they are going to be converting dead colonists or survivors of the facility into additional aliens or making things stronger or bigger. So this is going to be interacting with some of those components that you can get, such as if we go to the add-ons, if you go over here, you'll see if you go to the terrain expansion, and not necessarily this one because this is original Nemesis, but you see how there's dead body corpses. You could influence those onto the board, and then they would interact with those. So that's kind of cool. So that's what we're getting right now, stretch goals. You also got this lucky roll dice. This is to change your burst die to give it so it does more damage. They're adding a 4 here so you can do more damage. This is just to make the game a little easier if you want something to make the game a little easier. Not necessary to use, completely optional, but it is included for free for backers of the campaign. So now let's get into my recommendations. First off, before I do that, I had a question. The semi-co-op nature, is it more prevalent now or less prevalent than the original Nemesis? And that is important to talk about. When we go back to the original Nemesis, the idea was that there was a potential hidden traitor mechanic and that everyone could technically be hidden traitors. Like, that's the idea, is you can't trust anyone in your game. Yes, you can be playing cooperatively, but you could also be playing against each other. Now, the original Nemesis didn't have very good cooperative elements because it was more of a personal goal and then a corporate goal. And it might be to kill player 2 or ensure that the ship makes it to Mars or to deep space. So while one is killing a player, which is the semi-cooperative, not the antagonistic. The other one is your personal goal that is just what the ship wants. But there could be another player who wants the ship to go to Earth, and you want the ship to go to Mars. So even there, you're not technically playing against each other, but you're also not playing together because you have your own personal goals. That carries forward to Nemesis Lockdown, some very similar ideas. Retaliation takes at a much different approach and says, listen, you are a Marine unit. You're going to have your own mission goal. Everyone has the same goal. This is the mission, what we're going down to this facility for, to be completed. Very co-op dependent on that one, okay? But you also can have a personal goal. Maybe it's something like the facility must be blown up, or the shutdown, or kill player 2, or ensure all the life support tokens are turned off, right? Or removed, like removed so that their life support cannot be returned. And so a player at some point in the game is going to have to make the decision if they want to continue with the mission goal with the rest of the unit or take on their personal goal. I think that based on what my experiences are, most people so far have leaned more heavily into the cooperative nature of Nemesis, which is what my favorite aspect was, because it naturally gives you a way or a reason to play together. So I think that's good. So when people say, is it more or less prevalent? I would argue that it's a little bit less prevalent, but not void of it. And it depends, again, on your group and how you would want to approach it. If you're a group that really wants to make sure that the cooperative element is prevalent, I think Nemesis Retaliation is probably the way to go because it's naturally more built into the system. But if you're a player group that likes more of that chaotic evil, more of you're not sure who you can trust at any time, anyone could be betraying you, probably Retaliation is not the one that I would lean towards. I would probably lean towards more to Lockdown or Nemesis, and that one we'll get to in terms of the theme or IP for the total, what I'd recommend. So let's look at each one. You've got the different Nemesis ones. If I were to give you recommendations, we kind of talked about what I think Nemesis Retaliation. I think Retaliation is more streamlined. I think the rules are a little bit more succinct into getting the things going and to keep things more interesting. I also think the layout of the map is just better. There's a lot of things that make Retaliation just a step above, where I think it's just learned a lot of the mistakes it's made from its predecessors. But you have Nemesis Lockdown and you have Nemesis as well. I think these two, I don't necessarily think you need all three, and I would highly encourage people not to order all three. Don't FOMO yourself and think you need all three. While I think the Nemesis system is a very fun game, I question, because of the lack of compatibility between all three, when are you going to choose to play one versus the other? Especially when our gaming experience or playtime is so limited, lately, for the most part. When are you going to choose to play Lockdown over Retaliation or Nemesis over Lockdown? That's one of the reasons as to why I eventually sold my Lockdown, because if I'm going to play Nemesis, and when I say Nemesis, I'm talking about the experience that Nemesis holds, I'm going to have to choose one of the two. And I chose the one that gave me at the time a better, more thematic experience of what I wanted. And that was Nemesis, because I enjoyed the ship layout and the idea that we are waking up on the ship and who knows what's going on, and we have to work our way through it, just try to survive, and fumbling your way through it. I thought that the Lockdown mechanic of the light probably was a little bit more cleaner of a system, but I didn't really like the whole feel of the Mars base, in terms of the Alien IP, the Alien 3 theme didn't really set with me. So when I decided to sell one of the two, Lockdown was it. But now here we have Retaliation. Retaliation, as I said, I think mixes some of the best components of the game, cleans it up, and makes it so it's a little bit better. Now, again, going back to the discussion of cooperative versus non-cooperative, semi-cooperative, where does your group align? I think that's going to be a big factor here, because again, I lean more on the cooperative side. It's more than maybe reasons I'm biased towards Retaliation, but I also like to be able to take the fight. I like the ability to feel like my character isn't just going to walk around and just not be effective for the gameplay. One of the reasons I had such a negative experience when it came to Nemesis is I played a gameplay with one of the expansions from let me pull it up, from the Aftermath expansion. This is a big character pack, so you have a bunch of characters, and I played as the convict, who basically has nothing. His hands are bound unless the bounty hunter chooses to unlock me, and my weapon was like a lead pipe, and I couldn't fight, I couldn't do anything, and it was a miserable, non-fun experience. And I thought, wow, I went from several plays of Nemesis being very top tier to this one being very low tier, which made me be like, whoa, I don't know if I want to play this again for a while. And that was my problem playing some of these characters, where it could be so swingy in terms of my overall experience. We had a friend, you can't see what I'm pointing to because of the screen. My friend played the CEO, and he felt also very neutered and very weak, but it was thematic because he's an old man being carried around by an android. But it just felt like, man, we weren't very effective. Going now to then playing Retaliation, where I'm playing as a recon specialist who can, use my weapon effectively, or the officer who can command units to do different types of activities, and burst fire my weapon with my drum rifle, taking out 4 to 5 aliens. It felt good. It felt way better, and as a more enjoyable experience. Someone did a comment that maybe it's like kind of zombicide-like, and I'm like, maybe it is, but it also made it more fun for me. So there's the semi-comment. Let's remove that. So grab the original one, both or all 3. What is my final recommendation? First off, as I said, I don't think you need all 3. I think it's a very big trap to go with this all-in $400, after shipping and all that, trilogy pledge, because you're not going to be able to experience all the things compatibly. Nemesis, Retaliation, they're very much saying there's going to be very specific characters that they're going to figure out a way to try to cross-compatible with, but the aliens and all that, they're not going to work. So I would really nail down, of the ones here, which one feels best for you. Let's take a look at some of the other options that we can get, though. So if we're getting Retaliation, let's see what our recommendations are. Let's talk about them. We've already got the terrain pack here. This is including just cosmetic upgrades for the game. This is not necessarily needed. What I do like here is you got those corpse models here that we talked about will be used for the new alien. And you also have these egg models. I think these are the best egg models of all of the Nemesis games. I thought these ones look the best, but maybe that's because they look like Alien, the movie. And you've got these doors that look like they actually move, which is kind of interesting. They used to just look broken or open, so I kind of think it's cool that they have this new opening feature. And then you have the anti-air model. I have no idea where that would go on the board, because right now they're just wooden components, just like the engines in the original Nemesis. And then you have these oxygen generator models. Again, kind of can clutter things up, and that's one of the things I've noticed with some of the Awakened Realms games. When you get these terrain packs, they're so cool in your mind. You're like, man, how cool is this going to be? But sometimes you look at the board, you're like, man, it's a mess. I don't necessarily think, based on where these all would sit on the board, in my experience with it, this will make it too messy. But just be aware that when you're playing Awakened Realms games, sometimes these terrain packs can get a little bit messy. So here we have acrylic pack. This is $14. This is changing all the cardboard tokens to acrylic. I actually like this. I think this is a good purchase. Just the way that these weighted acrylics will feel in the bag is going to be good. I think the way that these get moved around in your equipment slots enough, I wouldn't mind these being acrylic. The secure markers, don't really care about these being acrylic, but they're coming with the pack, so it's fine. And for $14, I think this is a good enough price, especially for these tokens. I think just for the Prime Blood tokens alone, I'm happy with buying these acrylic tokens. Whenever I buy acrylic tokens for like games like X-Wing or whatever, $14 is way more than I'd pay for less than this, so I'm pretty happy with this price for that. Untold Stories. This is something, if you are looking at potentially getting it, the price here at $9, I would highly recommend getting it now. The Untold Stories from the original Nemesis are a beast to get. People pay way more than this price to be able to get this. And this is a cooperative campaign that's told through a comic book that the players will be able to experience a story through the game. So you're going to basically read the comic book. It's going to give you kind of an outline of what your mission is and what you're doing. And then you're going to play a scenario through that. And it's going to kind of have a little campaign through there. So this is Untold Stories 3. If you are someone who wants to kind of experience a little bit, very micro campaign for Nemesis for $9. I think this is an easy add-on from there. You have the alternative queen. I haven't talked about this. Fuck me, man. The queen model. Here we go. I hate this queen. And I told Waken Realms when I played, I was like, I really don't like the queen. But they're like, it's what we made. They've even mentioned in the comments, we're not changing the queen. So we're going to have to deal with waifu queen there. But you show here the alternative queen miniature. I don't like, I hate having to buy something just to fix the game for me. But this queen, when I'm looking here, this looks way more thematic and true to the aliens that we're playing here in this game. If we go to the updates here, and I think it might be update 3 or 2. I think it's 3 or 2. I can't remember. Where they kind of show a lot of the aliens. Okay, so if you look at these aliens here, these are the aliens, the adults, and then the drones. As we get to this queen alien here, this design, the progression of evolution, when I look at those aliens, and then I go back and I look at that lockdown or this queen alien, to me, this progression growth, I could see those drones and aliens, adults and whatnot coming from this queen. So to me, I think I would play this. I would almost get rid of the waifu queen and just play with this solely. So $9, that's my opinion in terms of what I would do. And then we have the Nemesis Retaliation art book. This is the art book, $16. I think art books are, I used to buy art books. I used to get the gameplay all in. I will tell you, please don't buy these for your own sake. First off, no one's going to buy these from you, so it's going to be hard to get rid of them later. And then they just become coffee book like sitters. Like, you'll open it up, you might look through half of it and then shut it and never look at it again. So I personally do not go for art books, but some people do. Now, the only reason I ever do recommend art books is if you are a painter who needs help with inspiration for coloring or shading or designing the pieces based on how the game's artist designed it. So if you're someone who likes to paint but might not have the creativity, you know, I'm one of those people, trust me, I have to have reference photos all the time. That's one of the reasons I like art books for that. So there you go. Nemesis Retaliation playmat. Looks like a generic playmat to me. The other playmats would actually take over the board, but because we don't have a traditional board, they had to come up with something unique. Here you can see it has the outline of the outside of the ship, so you'll build your ship within the confines of this playmat. It might be cool to have. I don't know if I'm willing to spend the $23 for it, but maybe. We'll see. I don't think so. And then you have the sleeves pack. These are Paladin sleeves, from what I can tell. Pretty good price, actually, for getting the sleeves to fit your game. And I don't mind paying that price for Paladin sleeves. So then you have Lockdown. I remember I told you I had sold Lockdown. With Lockdown, if you decide to get the Lockdown version, you are also going to be getting the stretch goals, which is pretty good. And you get these characters. Now remember, the characters from Nemesis are cross-compatible because of some of the stretch goals that are included in here. So those are things that you can get. This also, the stretch goal box is where you find Untold Stories number 3. So some people are wondering where Untold Stories 3 were. It's because it's in the stretch goal box of Lockdown, and you are actually able to buy the stretch goal box by itself if that's something you're wanting to do. You got the playmat. I had bought the playmat for Lockdown. As you can see, it basically just gives you all the corridors and locations for you, as well as the elevator section as you go deeper into the facility. Same thing with the art book. We've already talked about that one. A little more different price there on the art book, a little different. The kings, we haven't talked about what kings are. Kings are cosmetic changes only that replace the queen with the king. So if you would rather have a male variant of your alien, that's what the King's expansion is. Completely cosmetic, does nothing to the game. Here you have the Nemesis cats. These, again, also really have no gameplay variants at all, other than that they are cute. I still have mine in my painting room. I started painting them, but then I stopped. I'm not sure why I never finished painting these. But yeah, and then you have some promo cards and whatnot and sleeves. And then Nemesis. This is where we're probably going to get into the better alternative buys if you are looking at Nemesis. Okay, so you got the Nemesis game. It's got some of the better characters. I think these characters are a little bit more interesting. I enjoy these characters. And I also thought the intruders from Nemesis, between Nemesis and Lockdown, I enjoyed the intruders a lot. I thought they were the most thematically to what you imagine when you're playing this game for Alien out there. You also have, in this one, we'll get to those individual, you have the Medic character pack. If you were going to buy Nemesis, pick up the character pack, the Medic. This character pack on the secondary market is hard to find, and I've seen people pay upwards of $80 for this thing. So just pick it up for $10. It's a good character, a little bit more advanced, and can slow down the game because of the way her actions work. But she's very, very good, and probably my favorite character to play when playing the original Nemesis game. The Aftermath expansion adds a bunch more characters, but again, I have had mixed feelings with overall these characters. So while I do normally recommend buy more characters because it gives you more playability, I have found some of these characters to be lacking in that regard. And some of these characters take over slots from Nemesis. Like, so in Nemesis, you'll see that these are color coordinated. So you have the soldier here. Well, you can't have the soldier and I think like the convict because they share the same color pattern. They're like the same. So these are like when you play with Nemesis and you pick a character, it removes a character as well. So they're not all available. So just be aware of that as well. Now, I'm not sure how you like if you can house rule that anyway. I'm not sure. I haven't dived into that. Here you have the terrain pack. This is the original terrain pack. You can see the original eggs. Like I said, I think the eggs in the new one are better, and this just gives you some alternate bodies. But these are actually like the people that you play. I think that's their dead bodies, so that's kind of interesting. And then we have the Untold Stories 1, and they should have Untold Stories 2. Those are the comic book expansions we talked about. This one actually comes with the components because it's kind of got that campaign, which is kind of cool. You got the Kings. You got the Carnomorphs. The Carnomorphs very much reminded me of Dead Space. So if you played Dead Space, that's the feel of the Carnomorphs. But I've never played the Carnomorphs. This is one of the only expansions for Nemesis I never played. So I can't give you a true feeling of if I would recommend this. I own it. I bought it because they looked like Dead Space, but I've never broke them out and played them. And then you got the Void Seekers. These guys were okay. They kind of they have a much different mechanic than the original game. But again, alternating the type of mechanics of Aliens is always a good replayability option. And the original box of Nemesis does not come with a second Alien. So I would recommend getting one of the two to change up the type of Nemesis that you're fighting against, the type of alien. And that's about it. You have a bunch of promos and things that you can pick up if you would like. Again, none of this stuff is necessary. And then you have some other stuff. You can get a side quest game. Never had any experience with this, so I can't give you any thoughts on that. A book by the designer, Adam. And then you got a dice tray here. So yeah, that's Nemesis in a nutshell. Overall, there's more we can talk about here. This is something that people always ask me. Sundrop. Do you recommend Sundrop? Sundrop is a oiling that you can put onto these miniatures that give you a kind of more detailed look. Whenever you're watching previewers or content creators discuss the games, almost always their games are Sundropped. Not as professionally done as what you would expect in a retail game, but you can get an idea of what they look like. I have mixed feelings on Sundrops. There's times where I get the Sundrops and they look incredible, and I'm like, I couldn't imagine not playing the game with them. But there's other times that they kind of darken the character and you kind of lose some of the character color, corrections that you would like to have. So it's an additional cost. It's completely cosmetic. It's not necessary. But if you're going to be painting your minis, never get them Sundropped. It's just it's just something you don't need to do. So there you go. Overall, the track record and everything that you can see from Nemesis is very good. A lot of people love this game. I think, in my opinion, Retaliation is the best one based on what I've played. But, there's a bunch of different versions of it that you can go into based on your preferences. The last thing I want to talk about, which I thought was pretty cool, they have two options here. So if you do decide to get more Nemesis than just Retaliation, they have split wave shipping. So here you have single wave shipping, which means everything will show up at the same time, April 2025. So you're looking at 2 years out, right? Year and a half out. And you're also probably looking at trilogy pledge for $50, all the way down to 22 to 18 for those standard pledges. But if you are doing like the trilogy or the old stuff, this is something I might recommend is the split shipping, because you're going to get the new stuff in a year, October 2024. So less than a year, you'll be getting the new stuff. And you can see the shipping cost is $60. So if you look at the trilogy pledge, $50 here for single wave or $60 for split wave, and you're going to get all the stuff that's already been designed a year earlier. So just be aware of that. I normally don't like doing split wave shipping because normally it's like stretch goals and the core box. I just want it all at the same time. But when it comes down to like all the old stuff, you might as well. That way you can actually play some Nemesis stuff if you're new to this stuff. And the other thing I really like, here they show you that VAT charges are going to be in the pledge manager. This is completely new, and I love that they're doing this here. Sales tax for USA states. If you are in the United States, you can actually click this and it'll show you down here what states are going to be collecting sales tax from, so that you're aware of ahead of time in the pledge manager what to expect. So I think this is super cool, and I really appreciate Awakened Realms for doing something completely different than anyone else in that regard. So back to my big head. Overall, I gave you guys my thoughts here on which one I'd recommend. I think Retaliation is probably the best one to get overall, especially if you're new to the system. If you're trying to get all of them, I highly encourage you to check your FOMO first. And if you do that, wait till the pledge is over. Like maybe put $1 in and see if you're still feeling that itch once the pledge manager launches, because a lot of times people get carried over in the hype of these games, and I don't necessarily think you need all of it. But we'll leave it at that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Brian again. I'll talk to you very soon.